said it was that fluoride is a medicine. Inferred.
I did not
you
say
didn't.
that. I did not say
Alan
that.
did.
I didn't say it either. What I said was that some
It's
people say
considered
that. I said it was better considered like a immunization because it's used to prevent rather than to treat.
Correct. And I agree with what Alan said.
I'm not implying you said it per se. You said that others have said.
And I did say that.
Which is what I meant.
Okay.
And what I find interesting is that fluoride is naturally occurring.
Right.
How does a naturally occurring compound suddenly become a medicine? I don't know. I find the argument that it's a medicine a difficult one to understand.
OWASA is imposing the fluoridation on me, and it is my right, regardless of whether it's poisonous or not, to decide what is in my body. Along these lines, a more disturbing notion was proposed that fluoride is somehow not a medication, or rather not a medicine. For the record, the dictionary definition of medicine is a substance or preparation used in the treatment or prevention of disease. I took these people's assertions to heart that fluoride is not a medicine or medication, so I went and I looked up the definition of a medicine, and fluoride clearly fits the definition. Fluoride is used in the prevention of cavities and gingivitis and the treatment of these diseases. Fluoride pills are often prescribed, a practice that I find barbaric. I would go get dentists and physicians to tell me and provide sworn affidavits that fluoride is a medication that they use for the prevention and treatment of gingivitis and cavities, but I do not need this. I'm quite aware what medications do, and under any reasonable definition, fluoride falls into this category.
Fluoride is not a byproduct of the fertilizer industry. Fluoride is extracted from the same phosphate rock that is later used to create fertilizer. It does not come from fertilizer.
What do you think about Dr. King's assertion that fluoride is not a byproduct of the fertilizer industry when she says it is a it comes from the rock.
Is then integrated as a part of the fertilizer, and somehow that's magically not a byproduct, or at least not intimately related with the chemical makeup of the fertilizer. Somehow that's not there. Somehow.
Well, what do you make of it?
Well, you know, it's just classic methodology by omission. You know, she doesn't talk about the fact that rat poison's primary ingredient is sodium fluoride at just slightly elevated levels. You know, 1 part per 300,000 is lethal, and we have 2 parts per million. You know,
fluoride is not a byproduct of the fertilizer industry. Fluoride is extracted from the same phosphate rock that is later used to create fertilizer.
For the years, I've come to believe that the people who are against fluoridation fall into one of 2 groups. The first group includes those who have received bad information and are scared by what they read and hear. I certainly sympathize with these people's concerns. We all want to do what's right for our health and our children's health. OWASA has had 2 petitions filed in recent months that make claims of possible adverse health effects and request that fluoridation cease. I trust that the petitioners are well-meaning people who are concerned and trying to do the right thing. However, as recently stated in the New York Times, we are seeing, quote, a proliferation of misleading information. While conspiracy theories about fluoride in public water supplies have circulated since the early days of the John Birch Society, they now thrive online, where anyone with a little help from Google can suddenly become a medical authority. In the age of the internet, it's very easy to spread many of these rumors, end quote. Much of what you find on the internet is scary, and I understand why people are concerned when they read this information. But as you well know, everything that's on the internet is not true. Most people are not going to take the time to go to the health sciences library and search out the references they read about, and even if they did, they may not be skilled in critiquing the medical literature.
So this is about analysis of Dr. King's entire spiel on fluoride. Zach, what do you have to say? It's the establishment message. What tactics is she using in this part?
Well, the main strategy here is to just set up the straw man opposition of anyone that's concerned about fluoride, anyone who's actually done more in-depth research than the studies that she's trying to cite as the main foundation of the entire criticism of water fluoridation. People who have gone beyond that, who have done deep research, who have been silenced by the establishment for doing that research. She doesn't mention that, of course. It's, oh, you're automatically a fearmonger. You're automatically someone who's gullible and believes in online conspiracies, right? That's the straw man. So she has to demonize the opposition, demonize all alternative studies, sciences, everything, and it's not up for discussion. It's basically, we define reality. We're going to dictate what constitutes as a valid source, and we're also going to dictate what must automatically be assumed as a compromised perspective, which is the conspiracy theory. So it's a classic argumentative fallacy, as has no backing in trying to get deeper at some of the truth.
I did not explicitly study the area of public health, but I sure know how to read academic literature, and it does not take one with a doctorate in public health to read these scientific papers examining the dangers of fluoridation of the public water supply. It is absurd that the people in the OWASA recommendation meeting were claiming that fluoride is not a medicine. This I consider to be Orwellian doublespeak.
I said it was better considered like a immunization because it's used to prevent rather than to treat.
Next, fluoride is not like a vaccine. Cavities are not a communicable disease, and so far, fluoride is not a voluntary inoculation.
No, the only way it's retained is in the bones or the teeth. And so what's in the fluid works its way through. How quickly, I don't have that expertise.
When asked, does fluoride bioaccumulate, Dr. King replied, only in the bones. Is this disturbing to anybody else? I don't want fluoride in my bones.
We're not going to instantaneously stop, putting fluoride in the water, no matter what.
The forced distribution of fluoride, which, by the way, is a toxic chemical classified by the EPA, is authoritarianism, and I strongly believe it to be unethical. Regardless of the written law of the United States and EPA standards permitting the distribution of fluoride without an individual's consent, it does not make it right. And to live in an ethical society, it is an inalienable right.
My point is that none of us knows what really Mother Nature is going to do with anything. But there are a lot of things that we do know. And the chemical law of the halogens is universal. It starts with fluorine, and fluoride is fluorine with heavy metal salts in it.
I find it completely embarrassing that in these modern times we have advisors claiming to be scientists who have not even mastered the science of natural philosophy and ethics enough to be capable of properly wielding the powers of social engineering and public policy.
What the world is the matter with us? What is all this business about science? Give me science or give me truth. Give me facts, but do not poison me with something that is totally illegal. It is illegal to put something in the water that is harmful. And fluoride is the nastiest neurotoxin that exists on Mother Earth.
One of the issues people bring up is it's hard to tell what you're carrying, how much fluoride you're carrying in your system at any one time. It's not just if there's a certain amount in the water. That is, if you were tested, I guess, in your blood or whatever, saliva or whatever, it might be much higher because, for whatever reason. And that,
my understanding is that it's not going to be any higher than what's in the water because it is excreted.
It's one of those things where it's been studied a lot so that, the sense is that the level that's recommended is not too high, but it's also difficult to know exactly what dose any individual gets.
Well, that is factored into EPA doses for water fluoridation, where they do factor that in to have that limit.
Well, look at the track record of the EPA and all these different bureaucracies related to toxicity. They're the ones who just sort of flippantly raise the radiation levels in fish that are harvested off of the West Coast after Fukushima. It was the same people that said, oh yeah, workers and people can go back onto ground zero, and you know, the asbestos-filled dust it's fine. It's fine for people to just work in that and breathe it in and make sure everyone's all right. And again, it's vicious double standards, nasty hypocrisy, and it's just rooted in the fact that because there's an authority that has a precedence, you're going to argue for ongoing acquiescence to whatever the agenda is, whether it's toxicity in the water supply, genetic tampering within the food supply. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, there's so many issues that people aren't going to be aware of because they're just simply going along with the trust factor.
And at the low levels, you would die from water toxicity before you would really have serious problems from the level of fluoride in the water.
So the EPA standard assumes other sources of fluoride are
well, they continue to monitor that as the sources change, but as y'all know, the secondary MCL right now is 2 parts per million. So right now, the bird one, we're now at 0.7. With the MCL at 4 parts per million. So these are the levels.
Explain the second.
The secondary is 2 parts per million.
What do you mean by secondary?
Okay, the EPA has standards for what's allowed in drinking water. 2 parts per million, the water can be served to customers. Not recommended, it can't say in the naturally fluoridated area. It can be sold to customers, but they have to be notified. So between 2 parts per million and 4 parts per million, you could set that water. I would not recommend it. And at 4 parts per million, the water plant cannot provide that water.
Fluoridation is inexpensive. The WASA reports that it spends only $22,000 a year, if I read your report right, to fluoridate our water. This is barely $1 per year per child and youth in its service area. Low cost is a major reason why fluoridation is considered a significant public health achievement.
It has been known since 1854 that fluoride blocks the thyroid from getting iodine. And our bodies must have iodine. Our thyroid is who the heck we are. It is our emotions. It is our physical health. It is our generation. It is everything that we are. And fluoride is the nastiest neurotoxin that exists on Mother Earth.
A couple of questions. And first, I want to say I appreciate you both laid out the arguments on both sides, which gives us a nice framework to kind of look at the problem. I appreciate that very much. But really, to follow on what you were just talking about, Alan, the notion of freedom of choice and civil liberties. How does the ability of people to filter their water or to purchase, packaged beverages other than the water coming out of their tap, how does that play into the argument about civil liberties? Is that...
Well, I didn't look into what the cost or effectiveness are, but I read that you can buy osmosis type filters.
Consideration. My name is Farzin Barozande. I have lived in Chapel Hill since 1988. I work and live in Chapel Hill. I've raised a family. We have small children with us in our house. So we are very interested in the subject. I am not a professional activist. I'm a very concerned citizen. And I didn't know about the fluoride in the water. I honestly couldn't guess we put kind of chemicals, fluoride in the water, because the toothpaste recommends you wash it well and so on. So the idea never occurred to me until very recently that in fact we put fluoride in the water and we drink it rather than wash it. So, and I checked with some of the friends, different people in the church and the community, and really majority of people really not aware we put fluoride in the water. It might be obvious to this audience, but majority of citizens of Chapel Hill are not aware, based on my own casual checking. I would guess if the people of Chapel Hill become aware that Florida, you will have a much larger audience here because they are very, very concerned citizens with parents that are concerned. Now, I don't want to debate whether the fluoride are healthy or not healthy. Obviously, there is a debate there. Obviously, there are evidences it is harmful. And always we heard also people are concerned about their rights. So I'd like to appeal to you, based on the health consideration or possibility of health harms to the children, to the adults, and also the importance of people's right. Whether it's good for them or not, they do not want their water to be medicated or a substance to be added to it. So I would urge you to consider this matter. It is at least worth reconsideration.
And I don't know what it costs, but that's available. You certainly could buy bottled water or beverages that were organic or made with non-fluoridated water. It would be a burden. I mean, this is from my tap. It costs, what does this cost? How much, a cup of water, 2 cups of water from Owasso? I mean, can you tell me? It's hardly costs anything. So if I had to go and buy all my water because I felt very strongly about it, or because I had a health problem from it, which I have not seen documented here, that could be a burden, and I doubt if it's covered by anybody's insurance. But it is possible.
Whether or not it would be considered a bioaccumulate, which I don't believe it's fat soluble, and if it's just in the teeth and the bones, then that might or might not be considered bioaccumulating in that way. But there are issues about long-term, low-level exposures to chemicals that are where the response and the effects are different than a one-time large exposure, for instance. And so that's a question which I think at the moment is resolved okay.
If I have a headache or a backache, I might take some medication called aspirin to relieve my symptoms and swelling. If I have a toothache, I might apply topically a tad bit of fluoride to the affected area, and it would help the gums, getting rid of the toothache and making my teeth feel better. This is my decision. It is not the right of Owasso, nor is it within their charter to make this decision for me by putting fluoride in all of the surrounding area's water. I feel that a lot of important questions in the fluoride debate were not asked during the meeting to make a suggestion to Owasso board on whether or not the policy should be changed. One of these questions is, when adding up all the different sources of fluoride that we get in our food, beverages, etc., do we get more fluoride than we can stand? The board clearly skirted around this question, asking every possible similar question except this one. I believe this answer is unequivocally yes, because it has been shown that fluoride accumulates in the water, soil, and food chain. We get much more than the 2.0 parts per million allowed. Fluoride is a medicine, and therefore I would discredit these advisors to a great degree. They don't even know that fluoride is a medicine. They don't even know the definition of medicine well enough to include fluoride. So Zach, why should I have a problem with their putting a medication in my water against my consent?
They're not doctors. They don't have a basis in science to dictate what people should or shouldn't consume. I mean, especially if they're paying for it. Owasso is a service, it's a utility bill. And we're not given any kind of information as to why we're paying for these toxins in the water.
Doctors consider it to be a medicine, regardless of whether it has any medical benefit. Is a doctor even allowed to give you something without your consent?
Absolutely not. You have to have informed consent in order for any chemical compound, regardless of its supposed properties, to be administered to any patient.
Perhaps instead of distributing fluoride to all of the people, we could put Owasso in charge of distributing fluoride droplets. That would be good, because then people who want their water fluoridated could receive free fluoride, and the people who don't wouldn't have to take it. But then, is Owasso a doctor ready to take responsibility for handing out fluoride?
Can I clarify something here?
Yeah.
This discussion tonight is in response to a petition Daria made back in January. So it is not about petition, it's not about fluoride, it's about responding to Daria's petition, asking to bring Dr. Conant in to talk to us.
Thank you, Mr. Emmerson. Okay, are there any other petitions that didn't sign up to have a petition? Because actually, those folks could have spoken under item number 5. Yes? Yes, but you're speaking to item number 5. We'll get to you when we get to item number 5. That's why I say that folks that did the petitions, generally a petition for the audience, and this is the audience on the air too, a petition is to bring up some new idea, not on the agenda, that you would like OWASA to look into, rather than talking to an agenda item. And we accepted all of the folks that spoke, but really they could have spoken at the time that we're talking about item number 5.
Can I clarify something here?
Yeah.
This discussion tonight is in response to a petition Daria made back in January. So it is not about petition, it's not about fluoride, it's about responding to Daria's petition, asking to bring Dr. Conant in to talk to us.
They discount us based on a technicality because it doesn't refer specifically to any to the request for another expert. So
right,
and then
this is a way of stifling.
And then
free
they didn't
speech.
even respond to our petitions about fluoride. At the same time, they want to group us into item number 5. Yet they're not willing to recognize our petitions under item number 5, unless they they discounted our petitions under the general petitions category because we weren't speaking under item number 5, which had something to do with fluoride. But then when we got to item number 5, they would not acknowledge any of the petitions that kind of went outside the boundaries specifically of item number 5. That they had to do with fluoride, and item number 5 had to do with fluoride too. Right. They were just slightly out of bounds, so they cut us down and said you weren't supposed to talk about that. And then when we were in the part where we made original petitions, they said, well, you really should be talking under the one that has to do with fluoride. So they're either way we try, they're cutting us down.
Yeah, and what they're ultimately doing, and what the design of the expert feedback is supposed to bring about, is a total pigeonholing of any given perspective. And by reducing it down to, just a technical declaration or a technical expression about fluoride, they're able to castigate and marginalize the person speaking about fluoride just because it happens to be under a slightly different heading for why they're critical of fluoride being in the water supply. So that's how they're able to sort of technically discard certain things under the expert or the agenda that's going on in the town meeting or in the board meeting or at a public health board discussion group or something. That's why a lot of these bureaucracies don't want public comment, because they don't want people bringing in information that disrupts their feedback loops.
That's why we need to go.
Yeah, that's why.
Next time and every single time.
Yeah.
And tell them step by step. This is what I think you guys should do when you're trying to fight these expert panels and board hearings and meetings and trying to get any social change made, is go up and ask them just to specifically acknowledge one little thing. The first thing I would have them acknowledge is that I don't consent to being fluoridated. So I go up there, I say, I want you to acknowledge, I petition you to acknowledge that I don't consent to having my water fluoridated.
Yeah.
And then the second person goes up and says, I have this Harvard study right here. I want you to acknowledge this study. And then the next person goes up and says, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And then you will break them down.
Yeah.
Just keep chipping away. Hammer at the wall. That's how the wall fell.
That's right. Simplified version, where they don't even anonymize their feedback.
I would say that, they're not anonymous.
No.
But they're so generic.
Yes.
That, they definitely want to keep them generic.
Mm-hmm.
Not without any real accentuated personality traits. Like,
right.
Or at least, like, Dr. King, she's the stereotypical fluoride proponent in the university system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's her credentials that we're supposed to defer to.
Lay down the arguments on both sides, which gives us a nice framework to kind of look at the problem. I appreciate that very much.
Well, we've seen this doublespeak that, oh, well, I understand both sides of the fence, but... Yeah, that's called manufacturing consent. Not all views were expressed in that context. It's this silent board hearing where no one's able to comment or get a word in edgewise. There's not even room for public comment. So this whole idea that we all have to be on the same ship here, we all got to be on the same table, that's classic manufacturing consent that's used in the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, planning guides. This is UN Agenda 21. And what it is the experts decide reality for the helpless public who would otherwise not be able to look after themselves in any way, shape, or form. No one would be able to understand the science of dental care without us. Let's just make sure everyone has their fluoride. That's just totally despicable.
But people say, okay, we can stop fluoridating the water because we get it in our Coke and beer, but if you stop fluoridating the water, then you don't get it in your Coke and beer. So you still, whether you're getting it from Owasso or Sanford's Coke factory, still more people get the benefits. So the contrast between the two groups is not as significant.
So Zach, what's up with this manual? It costs $6,100 to buy, to purchase the information that tells you how frequently and how widespread fluoride is used throughout different industries.
Right, and that's why it's a total fallacy for them to say, oh, well, it's naturally occurring, and this particular dosage in the water is acceptable, because if they only receive this much, that's all they're receiving. Well, that's not true. I mean, fluoride pervades industries from cosmetics to agriculture to construction to, infrastructure. It's $6,100 just to know how many contractors, how many businesses, and how many industries actually use this toxic, corrosive substance.
petition them. They need to know about that.
They
Do you
need
think
to know
they
about
own
it,
Do you think they own that?
I doubt it.
Well, we should petition
that's
them
something
to fork over the money to
That's
buy
right.
it, so then we can see it.
And so this whole idea that there's some kind of medical tolerance that they get to appropriate for the whole population because of some bull study
Completely ludicrous.
is totally ludicrous because it's in everything. I mean, it's in our food. Irradiation that goes on in the food supply. Probably those instruments have fluoride-based components in there.
You want fluoride in your thyroid, or would you rather have iodine 131?
2. Fluoride does not cause cancer. These claims don't stand up to the evidence. In 2011, in a study approved by the National Cancer Institute, a U.S. study found no link between fluoride and cancer.
It's a CDC level 4 corrosion poison. And before it comes to the plant, it's imported from the fertilizer and the aluminum industries, and you need a hazmat suit to basically handle it. But as soon as it's hooked up to the municipal water supply, it becomes a dental health product. I mean, how absurd is that? I mean, anyone with any 2 grains of intelligence to rub together will see there's no explanation for it besides it's a bioweapon.
The story has progressed to the current day when opponents claim that fluoridation causes almost every disease known to mankind. They state that fluoridation continues because of a conspiracy among all governmental agencies and health organizations. How would you ever get anyone to agree on such a conspiracy? Fluoridation opponents claim that they have new information. If they have new information, why do they continue to misrepresent the information they provide?
Fluoride does not add to our water as far as purification.
So this is just in response to this classic debunking argument, right? That's always used. How could anyone possibly keep up with such a conspiracy? How would you get anyone to agree on such a convoluted plan to take over resources and deindustrialize the West and poison people and incrementally depopulate the globe, et cetera, things that are documented. How do you get people to agree on that? Well, of course, what she leaves out in this whole debunking argument is the fact that this UN Agenda 21 specifically, which I think water fluoridation is dovetailed into to a T, is so hyper-compartmentalized and so multivalent that people, even within their own compartments, on a specific issue, don't even know the extent to which they're being involved. I mean, if people don't even know if their water is fluoridated in their local municipal supply, what makes you think that people are going to know the extent to which their bureaucratic or administrative managerial decisions aren't being consolidated into a broader thrust that just goes beyond the scope of their pay grade or their title or their little piece of authority within whatever hierarchy that they pride themselves upon.
But doesn't it influence academics? Doesn't it go all throughout academics? It's basically enshrined in academia.
Yeah.
In the Obtuse Academy, the fluoridation policy has been enshrined.
Mm-hmm.
If every teacher teaches the student something that has been taught to him, it's never going to change. It takes a student to figure out something brand new to make a change.
Well, yeah, and that's why government education, state schools, the curriculums are sort of tailored per the child's development, all the way up into young adulthood and college, to appeal to various collectivist indoctrination seeds that have been planted all along the way. And so by the time you get up to, say early 20s, the big trendy thing to learn about in college is how much the West and the industrialized countries have ruined the world, that we've just destroyed cultures after cultures that were so in sync and symbiotic with nature, and that, we have to pay the price. And if, regardless of whether we want to or not, there should be some unelected consortium of experts or government leaders to just, tell us how to do things. And it's just the classic authoritarian attitude from top to bottom, but it's dovetailed in with this sort of, I don't even like to call it scientific, it's sort of scientistic. It uses the guise of objective analysis and experimental methodology and peer review, et cetera, as an ideological hammer, as it were.
As you on the OWASA board well know, the safety and quality of fluoride additives are assured by EPA standards. No matter where the fluorides come from, Standard 60 uses on-site inspections and surprise spot checks to confirm quality and safety.
So what does Dr. King's assertion that the safety and quality of fluoride additives are assured by EPA standards, what does that mean to you?
It really means nothing, because EPA has a lot of conflicting opinions about this. You have brought up EPA stating that drinking and ingesting inorganic fluorides will lead to fluorosis, which is over time. It accumulates in your bones and affects bone density. But aside from that, I don't need to hear from Rebecca King about the safety. I can go to the water plant and talk to the water staff, who has to wear hazmat suits and have to have special distribution systems, because this chemical is so corrosive it will literally melt through concrete. It corrodes all metals, and they have warning stickers on the tanks which distribute fluoride to our drinking water, which state this, so that anybody who's working with the chemicals knows what kind of precautions they should take. So just because the public health agent, Rebecca King, says that EPA recommends it and says it's safe, it really means nothing to me. It's just an opinion slated as fact, slated as truth that we're supposed to just accept.
But here it says, exposure to excessive consumption of fluoride over a lifetime may lead to increased likelihood of bone fractures in adults, admitted by the EPA. Here, I'm going to give this one to you as well. Do you acknowledge that I don't consent?
Sure,
okay,
you said that before at the last meeting.
Well, thank you. All right, I'm glad I get some acknowledgement here. All right. There's no excuse for your continued fluoridation of my water against my consent. You are all behaving unethically and criminally, in fact, as I believe. And you are being warned. I mean, this is not acceptable to me at all. I have the right to water at a decent price without fluoride, as does everyone out there who may or may not know that you put it there. And fluoride is a corrosive toxin. There is nothing else that at one point is a toxic, hazardous chemical where you need a hazmat suit to handle it. And after industrial refining, you purchase it, suddenly it becomes a dental health product? That is just ludicrous. I will not tolerate your use of this bioweapon against my family and my community. You people need to wake up and realize that the toxic chemical fluoride is bad for you, not good for you. Please do your own independent research on this, as I have, and I cannot hold your hand while you do it. Though, the next thing I want you to acknowledge is that I have brought you 10 copies of a Harvard Medical Journal study that shows how quote-unquote excessive fluoride, not in levels so much higher than our own, reduces IQ. It does. So I'm going to hand this over here. You cannot control the dosage of fluoride once you put it in the environment. It's everywhere, from construction to cosmetics to food. Even Dr. King admits that it accumulates in your bones.
My name is Corey Sturmer, and I have one question to the OWASA board. Does the OWASA board believe that they have the authority to medicate the public water supply?
That's a rhetorical question. I don't think the board needs to answer that. It's a, you know, we have frankly had open discussions in the NERDS committee about this.
What's the NERDS committee again?
Natural Resources and Technology.
Who's on the NERDS committee?
I'm on the NERDS committee.
So there's another committee that meets in private to discuss.
No, it does not. It's a public meeting, publicly advertised. Okay. Has been all along.
And does the NERDS committee believe that OWASA has the authority to medicate the water supply?
I would say that it's a rhetorical question, and the board's not in a position to answer the question, so move on, please.
Okay, so it's not rhetorical because according to OWASA.org, it says, during the process of treating the public drinking water, we then add fluoride for dental health and make sure the pH of the filtered water is at the proper level. The reason I ask about medication is because according to the FDA Section 201G1, the Food and Drug Administration defines a drug as articles intended for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease, and articles other than food intended to affect the structure or any function of the body of man or other animals. So by the FDA's definition and awasa.org, the board does hold as an official position that they have the authority to medicate the public water supply. So if we've already accepted that that's okay, the question then becomes prominent, should be foremost in all of our minds. What is OWASA medicating the public water supply with? And I have here from the OWASA website, substances found in the Orange Water and Sewer Authority's drinking water in 2012. Fluoride maintained at 0.66 parts per million, and it says the source is from discharge from fertilizer and aluminum factories. This is stated on OWASA's paperwork.
This is Info Warrior Parker Emmerson reporting from the very front lines of the info war. Here in the following clips, I'm about to expose how the OWASA board, especially the member named Will Raymond, he is explicitly lying about the source of the fluoride, I suppose used in Orange County, but he's lying outright about the source of fluoride in general. He states that it's not a byproduct of the aluminum and fertilizer industries, and then you can see on their very own website, which I'm going to document cam now, that it says fluoride comes from discharge of the aluminum and fertilizer industries. I mean, these are outright lies, and we're doing everything we can to fight this. Best of luck. Godspeed.
Tell me what you're gonna do when they come for you. Tell me what you're gonna do when they begin to drug you. When the government begins to bug you. When they put the microchips inside of you. Tell me what you're gonna do when they come to get you. Can you handle what the devil has in store for you? When they bust up in your crib to take your weapons from you. On that 10 o'clock news, martial law curfew.
One of the issues you brought up, and it kind of bothers me just a little bit, is that the sources of the fluoride, and I believe we've had testimony numerous times that we're not getting this from industrial discharges or something, you know, some kind of nefarious source. And I would just direct your attentions to the probably by now fairly voluminous notes from our previous minutes where we have discussed this. And we have spent a lot of time actually discussing this. So I would hope you understand we do take it seriously. We didn't just blow you off. We're even spending more time on it. I hope you take it as a somewhat of a yardstick of, our concern, even if it doesn't turn out the way that you're.
Well, I mean, the question I raised was less about the actual compound and where it was purchased from, and more about the idea, the concept that a board such as yourself has the authority to treat an entire population using the water supply as a vehicle to deliver that medicine. And so we can talk about where the chemical comes from, who we buy it from, what it's composed of, and how that affects the human body. But I'm also pointing out that, like Parker said, the ethical and principle of the matter is also important. It's fine that you are okay with bathing and drinking the fluoride. It's quite another to say to your neighbor, you have to do so.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other petitions from the public?
What is OWASA medicating the public water supply with? And I have here from the OWASA website, substances found in the Orange Water and Sewer Authority's drinking water in 2012. Fluoride maintained at 0.66 parts per million, and it says the source is from discharge from fertilizer and aluminum factories.
We're not getting this from industrial discharges or something, some kind of nefarious source.
Some kind of nefarious source.
Look at all the fluoride components that are used in geoengineering. I mean,
what was it?
The chemtrails.
Nanotechnology. All the stamps that are used in the fabrication of nanomaterials. It's called perfluorocarbon. Yeah.
Old Star Wars, Melanite Ministry, no befriending me. I murder every mutant species, appeal supremacy. This entity gets rid of all enemies mentally before they trap your unborn babies in penitentiaries. The arch nemesis, super white supremacist that invented Clark Kent concepts. Some dark tinted from a UFO's magic window, looking below like a black crow and human shadows covered in snow. Cold thoughts from the heart, Antarctic winter blizzards.
You think she likes fluoride? You think little Millie likes fluoride?
Well, it's just like Esther was talking about.
It's got to be hard on the puppy dogs. They've got a thyroid. Little puppy has a thyroid. What about little Millie? You think little Millie can handle 0.7 parts per million? Millie, can you handle 0.7?
Probably not.
Right. I drink a whole liter of water. Say that's not that much water. I drink one of those in 5 or 10 minutes, and then I just got 0.7 milligrams. That's a serious dose.
But that's just once.
That's
per
just
day.
once. And so
I
drink 4 or 5 of those a day. But I don't drink it obviously.
And
But
over a lifetime.
and I mean that's just perpetual fluoride doses.
Right.
All
And
day.
the same lady, Rebecca King, at the Durham meeting, said that
I don't want that. That's why I don't consent.
she said that it's of crucial benefit because when we ingest the fluoride, trace amounts come up through our saliva and continuously bathe our teeth in fluoride, preventing tooth decay. Not ever acknowledging the fact that if it's coming up through our saliva, it's also coming up through all organs, through all cells. You're crying fluoride, you're peeing fluoride, you're sweating fluoride, your skin is embodying fluoride. If you're drinking it, your cells are 75% fluoride.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's like let's sacrifice the rest of our bodies for our teeth.
they care more about your teeth than any other organ